Okay. Yeah. I think we're definitely streaming now, Prof.
All right.
Yeah. So we are. I need to drag this down. And yeah. So hello everybody. Good evening and welcome to this stream. This should, in theory, be a better stream than the one that you guys watched in the afternoon. That one was pretty terrible. But I've worked on some technical things. Obviously, I've got one of our senior editors and our senior researchers here at Dagap, who's Jacob Changamera. Probably you could call him the brains behind the research think tank behind Dagap. And I've got him on today because I thought it would be very important to just have a discussion with him, not only about what's happened with Chatunga Mugabe getting arrested, but in terms of what does it mean, what processes could follow, will he appear in court, could he appear in court, and then just draw inferences from the information that we know and that we have from how South Africa tends to conduct its affairs. A couple of years ago, almost a decade ago, Sudan's president was in South Africa, Omar al-Bashir, and the South African court ruled that Bashar should be arrested and sent to the ICC because there's an active arrest warrant. Bashar left the country before that arrest warrant could be served. Not long after that, there was an incident with Grace Mugabe where she was involved in an altercation, and charges of assault were filed against her. She was meant to appear in court. She left South Africa and she has never returned since. So, Prof, I'm just going to bring you in terms of, could you perhaps explain to me the legal ramifications? What does this mean that's happened with Chatunga? What are we likely to see? What's your analysis, and what do you predict?
Predictions are better left to prophets. But it's good to be here. And obviously, the news cycle is quite fast, and it's quite interesting how Chatunga is staying and living in South Africa. And obviously, the alleged shooting, right? So obviously, the South African authorities will have to investigate, and they're investigating. But then details are scant at the moment. But from what we know is that one of the security guys there was shot. And according to some news reports, he was in a critical condition. But now, where the story turns murky is nobody knows for certain who shot him. Right? Some sources do allege that this guy did an altercation with Mugabe, and Mugabe shot him, but we also hearing other sources say that there was a third party who shot the guard and ran away. So pretty much there was an intruder who fired these shots, about 8 or 10 shots, and that person fled. And to sort of give credence to that theory is the fact that the weapon cannot be found. So that is where we are at the moment.
Okay. I know you said predictions are left to prophets, but obviously in your experience as a journalist, and you are sort of our resident expert on legal matters when it comes to Dagap, to be fair, do you think, from a diplomatic perspective, that this is something that can be seen through? Would Chatunga be actually arrested, taken to court. And I want to bring you back to what I said in the intro, which is with Omar al-Bashir, the court ruled that Bashir must be arrested and handed over to the ICC. He left South Africa via Waterkloof Air Base as that judgment was being passed. By the time journalists had that judgment, Bashir was flying over Tanzania and almost home. Same with Grace Mugabe. Mbalula gave an update that Grace Mugabe would be at Randburg Magistrates Court. We were working together at the time, so I remember you and I coordinating about how to get there and cover the story. And Grace Mugabe never showed up. In fact, by the time the clerk of court closed the doors at Randburg, Grace Mugabe's motorcade was in Harare. What is your view from a diplomatic perspective? Because, whether we like it or not, Chatunga Mugabe is no ordinary, Tom, Dick, or Harry. He's neither me or you. There would have been conversations by this time between Pretoria and Harare, high-level conversations at it. How do you see it, and how do you place this event, and what insights could you possibly offer?
Okay, so like you rightly said, Chatunga is not an ordinary citizen. If you look at how other countries generally handle their Tier 1 passports, which are diplomatic passports, right? These are issued to senior government officials and their spouses and their immediate legal dependents. Okay. So in the case of Zimbabwe, junior government officials will get red passports. That is the diplomatic passport in Zimbabwe, and their kids will get blue passports, which are service passports. But in terms of the first family, they generally and other senior government officials, they pretty much just give diplomatic passports to everyone involved. So it's also within the realm of possibility that Chatunga still has a red diplomatic passport issued by the government of Zimbabwe. That being the case, we can't really draw parallels between Omar al-Bashir and Chatunga Mugabe, because with Bashir, there was a prima facie case. It was a pretty straightforward issue where the ICC had issued an arrest warrant and so on and so forth. But here, the story is still very much in the air. There are no substantive facts that can pin Mugabe to the crime or to the alleged crime. As things stand, as I have said earlier, we literally have two sides of the story. We have one story that says Chatunga had an altercation with his guard and he shot him, and the other side that says there was an intruder that was trying to gain access into the compound, and this guard was actually fighting off those intruders, right? So whether or not people believe that is a different story altogether. But obviously, the South African police service or South African authorities will handle that the way that they see fit. But at the moment, obviously, there will be high-level talks behind the scenes. But as things stand, I do not think that there will be any charges preferred. From anything, actually, from what we have heard now, is that Chatunga is actually claiming to be a victim, and he's actually the complainant in this case. So it actually gets interesting from here.
Yeah. I've got a question there for you, Prof, with regards to this whole diplomatic immunity and how it works. And that question comes from when you and I were working on the Grace Mugabe issue, there was something about something called a not verbal or something of the sort where...
Hello?
I said, I believe... can you hear me, Prof? I don't know if you lost my audio a little bit there, Prof.
Yeah. I think I lost you a little bit.
Okay. I think that may have to do with me not mixing it properly. Just give me a sec.
Yeah. So can you hear me now, Prof?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. So I was saying I wanted to draw you back to when you and I worked together on Grace Mugabe's issue. There was
Yeah.
something about a not verbal, right? And at
Mhm.
the time, one of the issues was that while it's Grace had a diplomatic passport to claim immunity,
Mhm.
South Africa should have then been alerted that this person is there on a diplomatic mission, etc. So, how does this immunity work? Does having the passport just automatically mean you can't be arrested? Because I do know for a fact that does have one, but he has been arrested with one. I know quite a lot of people who've been arrested despite being in possession of one. Um, how would it work in this case in terms of what would Harare send another not verbal like they did in 2017 to say, by the way, Grace Mugabe was actually on official business, and this is you should let her go. And I know you said there was a prima facie case with Omar Al Bashir. And in Chatunga's case, we really won't know until the police tell us what the motive was or precisely what's transpiring. But was that not the case again with Grace at the time, where we've only ever had one version really from that lady
Mhm.
Gabriella, I think, took to whose mother took to Twitter to explain what had happened. So how does that immunity thing work, and can the Zimbabwean government get Chatunga out of a fix like that?
Okay, so that's a very interesting question and one that often is misunderstood. And so I'm quite happy that you've asked that question. So the two things here to note, okay? So when it comes to diplomatic immunities and privileges and so on and so forth, the mother law or the best law is obviously the Vienna Convention, right? So every country then sort of drinks from that well, and then they develop their own laws um, that are relevant to their context and their cultures and their frameworks. So when it comes to the Vienna Convention, which is obviously gives birth to all these other laws, I think the important question to ask is what are you immune from? Because people often think that when you have diplomatic immunity, it means that you can't be arrested. The Vienna Convention, you essentially have a license to kill, so to speak. So the first question then is to ask, like, what are you immune from, right? So the Vienna Convention on diplomatic relations, I think it's 1961, if I'm not mistaken. You have to fact check me on that,
Yeah.
but it says pretty much you are immune from things that try, or rather, the law is there to provide a smooth sailing for the diplomatic nature or the diplomatic missions that are accredited to a particular country, right?
Okay.
So that means that if you are accredited to a country or to a mission, right? Because remember, if you're a diplomat, you serve at the pleasure of the host country.
Of the host country.
So the host country can pretty much expel you from the country. They can declare you persona non grata, right? So what it means pretty much is in the execution of your duties, you cannot be preferred criminal proceedings, or criminal proceedings cannot be preferred against you. However, it doesn't exempt you, and this is very important that most people don't understand. You're not exempt from civil liability, right?
Okay.
So there are also tiers and levels to the diplomatic privileges. There are other ones we have, I think it's qualified immunity. So these are like your ambassadors and so on and so forth. But not everyone who works, say, at an embassy or at a high commission has the same level of immunity.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. I've got a question there, Prof. And I'm going to put you on the spot again because again, you said you don't want to be a prophet, you don't want to give predictions, but uh, you mentioned something about diplomacy, about politics, and this and that. Uh, Would you say from where you sit that there would be the political appetite from South Africa to go after Chatunga Mugabe, or to ensure that that he's arrested? And I say this because there's another comment that you said where you said, or despite the court judgment and whatever else happened, Omar Al Bashir did not sneak out of South Africa. He was allowed to leave. They could
Yeah,
have enforced the judgment if they wanted to. The same
yeah,
as Grace Mugabe.
yeah,
She didn't jump the border to
yes,
return.
yes,
If anything, there've been allegations over the years that Mbalula deliberately misled people by telling them she would appear in court at 3, knowing that when everybody fled, everybody converged at court. Nobody actually stayed at the airport to actually realize that she had flown out. So, do you think there would be an appetite to essentially arrest, charge, and submit Mugabe to trial? I know you don't really like speculation, and to be fair, journalists shouldn't be in the business of speculation. But this is a conversation, it's a live analysis, so feel free to break some of those rules that we have about
yeah.
speculation. It's just a case of how you call it.
Okay, so there's no one in Pretoria or in Harare who has the appetite to deal with the diplomatic fallout of arresting Chatunga, particularly as things stand, or as how we know the issue to have occurred, right? So, so if he's found guilty, which I do not think he will be, because we do not know actually as of now if the South African Police Service has actually preferred charges against Chatunga, right? We do not know that at the moment. There's not been an update that I've seen from the South African Police Service of charges being preferred against him. So
Yeah. So my understanding, the
yeah,
last communication I had from the SAPS, a response from the spokesperson, was that Chatunga was initially detained for questioning.
yeah,
He wasn't necessarily arrested. He appeared in handcuffs, but
yeah,
there'd been a shooting incident. So as with those shooting incidents, police take precautions.
yeah.
He would have been in handcuffs anyway because there had been a gun and the shooting. But later in the day, that detention was now elevated from a detention to an arrest with a scheduled court appearance. They believe that he will appear at Alexandra Magistrates Court tomorrow. So they didn't say they've charged him, but the assumption is if he's going to appear in court tomorrow, they have
Yeah.
charged him or are going to
They
charge
have
him.
charged him.
But you and I
Yeah,
again come from 2017 where we worked closely together and believed Grace Mugabe would appear at Randburg Magistrates Court, and she hadn't
yeah.
been charged. I believe the warrant of arrest was only done the following year in 2018, wasn't it, or something of the sort? Wasn't it
It
last year?
actually took 1.5 years to produce that warrant of arrest because the assault happened in August 2017, and the warrant of arrest came out in December 2018. So that shows you that there was no appetite in Pretoria to pursue this case. Had it not been for the civil litigation by AfriForum, I think we were pretty much running through this. But also, um, in the grand scheme of things, assuming that Pretoria, then, sort of takes a hardline stance, Chatunga is a family member of, at least in how this is framed, he's a family member of a diplomatic agent. He himself is not a diplomat in that sense. I hope that makes sense to the people who are watching or listening. Because Chatunga does not qualify by himself and of himself to have a red passport. So he got that red passport by virtue of his father being the head of state. So that makes him the diplomatic agent's family member, right? So they pretty much enjoy the same privileges and immunities. But here, the issue where it gets tricky is that he is not in South Africa on diplomatic business, right? He's not in South Africa on diplomatic business. He's not a diplomatic agent in that sense because he's not working for the Zimbabwean embassy or the Zimbabwean consulate, at least to the best of our knowledge. He's not. He's, in that regard, a free citizen who just enjoys these privileges. So if South Africa then takes like a hardline stance, and if it's proven that he's the one who has shot the security guard, I do not think that there will be any pushback from Harare, so to speak, in that regard. I think they will let him sink. But chances are he will get slap on the wrist. And I think at the moment, if he indeed did what he is being said on social media to have done, then right now at this moment they're praying that the guy does not die, right? Because if someone dies, then that's a different fish altogether. But as long as the person is still breathing, as long as the guy is still alive, money talks at the end of the day. So yeah.
Okay, I like that last part about
money talks. I'm going to bring in Hubert Stole. He's one of us here, dug up. Hubert, when Prof says money talks, what exactly is he referring to there? Do you mind explaining us to the readers for us in the context of your own experiences, obviously, as a journalist for 10, 11 years now? I think Hubert is either mute or he can't hear us. Well, Prof, Hubert can't seem to hear us. I hope I can get hold of him on the other line.
I think he's muted, though.
Yeah, it looks like he is muted.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Can you hear me now? I'm here.
Okay. Did you get the question, Hubert, about when Prof says money talks, in your experience as a journalist and speaking about this matter, what does Prof mean, and what would this mean in a case like this one?
Okay. Thanks for having me. I think what he's referring to is the power that comes with money when you get yourself into these kind of circumstances. Take, for example, this issue that we are facing with. You have to bring in fixers to fix whatever has gone wrong today. You see, the issue of Chatunga is not only an issue of money alone. It also involves power. So now we have a gun that is missing. We don't know how and when this happened. So from my experience, the first person he would call is not the police. It is his fixer. And that fixer is obviously paid a lot of money. So I think that's where money comes in. And also, if it is not the fixer, then probably the first responders who came to the scene. It is very obvious that the scene was tampered with. I might not know how, but there is evidence that something happened there. So all those tracks are covered by money. That's when money exchanges hands. So I think that's what he meant.
Oh,
okay,
Prof.
Prof. I'll sort of bring this to you and try and take advantage of your understanding of diplomacy and so forth as a person with massive experience in that sector. You said Chatunga is not a diplomat himself. He would be the child of a diplomat, so therefore he doesn't necessarily enjoy everything that a diplomat would precisely enjoy. In 2017, prior to prior to Grace Mugabe having those issues in South Africa, Chatunga and Robert Jr. had landed in trouble in the United Arab Emirates, which led to Robert Mugabe taking an unplanned trip to Dubai and ended up being camped in Dubai for a week, leading even to rumors that Mugabe had gone to Dubai and died. At the time, under a different establishment, we then established that he had gone there because there was an emergency relating to that. Eventually, the UAE authorities let Robert and Chatunga go. We have never got an official confirmation of what precisely the charges were, but we understand they were serious and the UAE government had wanted to commit them to prison. But there were diplomatic discussions and they managed to get away with that. And then moved to continue their education in South Africa and no longer in Dubai, which is where they had been based. Do you think that perhaps we are having this situation because time and time again there's been legal trouble following both of Mugabe's boys? Like I said, the incidents in Dubai, which lead them to getting expelled out of that country. Then they land in South Africa. Their mom lands in trouble because she stumbles upon a house party where both boys are there. It extends further, beginning around 2021. Both the Mugabe boys start to routinely appear in the press, charged with different things. There is first Robert Jr. was arrested for attacking one of his friends with a whole handle and he breaks his legs. By about 2022-2023, Chatunga is in trouble for assaulting a police officer. He was driving to Beitbridge at a roadblock. He had a Chinese friend in his car. He beats up a cop. That case also then doesn't really go anywhere. And then up into the dug-up stories that we did about 7 months ago, which involved what was essentially a reign of terror, to be fair, if we're to look back in terms of whether they were security guards, villagers, neighbors, random motorists, were bearing the brunt. And before this case is even gone a step further, we are now hearing that some of the vehicles at the Mugabe house were fitted with police sirens. I hadn't updated our dug-up group, but one of the issues we've now then discovered is that there is a second case open, which is from about a month ago, which is Chatunga was driving down Rivonia Road. There was a G-Wagon and a Bentley, and there was a Mercedes-Benz that was escorting them with blue lights. Motorists is said to have cut them off, or there was some misunderstanding about where right of way. They flicked on their blue lights, they beat that motorist and confiscated his phones. Are we possibly maybe seeing a reign of impunity that could actually end up with things either, I don't want to use escalating because I think if someone gets shot, they've escalated already. But with things getting maybe to what you'd see maybe as like a point of no return or something?
So when you are conferred with diplomatic immunity, it's tied to active service, right? And Chatunga derives his privileges from that. Okay. So he has derivative immunity. But then what also complicates the issue is he is not accredited as a diplomat in South Africa, right? But generally, they get what is known as ad hoc immunity, which is granted, by the ministers and so on and so forth. Right. So when it comes to this, it's a little bit tricky regards that. But then when it comes to the fixing of the blue lights, is it? I think from what we have seen, at least the footage that we have seen, they don't appear to be blue lights. Those appear to be white lights, and white lights.
Yeah, on the BMW. Yeah.
Yes, those appear to be white lights, and white lights are reserved for the security services, like private security. So that I don't think that there is an issue there, unless if that car is registered to or is not registered to an accredited security company. But I don't think we should be reading too much into it. But obviously, yes, the boys have operated with impunity, whether in South Africa, whether in Zimbabwe. They shot some people in Mazoe, and it's common knowledge that the boys row on a level of impunity that is unbecoming of children of a former head of state.
Okay, Prof. I want to take it a step further and obviously bring in the hot topic, the hot potato, which is relations between citizens of South Africa and citizens of Zimbabwe are probably, at least online, not the best at the moment. I dare not say offline, because I think Zimbabwe and Zambia, and I think most foreigners live next to South Africans in Soshanguve, in all those places, for the most part without any tension. Online, it's a different story. Those relations are pretty strained at the moment. This issue with Chatunga Mugabe, does it have the capacity to have, I'll call them in quotes, xenophobes, ramp up pressure on President Ramaphosa or on the ANC, as either yet another example of South Africa's security services being inept, or yet another case of Zimbabweans exporting their waste to South Africa, given that it's yet another incident involves a Zimbabwean, and it appears that person would have been operating without impunity. I hear what you say about that white lights are for security companies, but sirens are not. So there's definitely at least an issue in one form or the other there, because security companies cannot use police sirens, can they? But do you think this can add fuel to the Twitter fire?
Oh yeah, definitely. So one of the things that I've been working on is investigating these so-called patriots that stoke these fires in South Africa, or on Twitter, so to speak. Sorry, I still call it Twitter.
Everybody
and
does.
Yeah. So my preliminary investigations pretty much show that these are bots. So it's pretty much a few individuals controlling these accounts that then inflame or give you this fake engagement. As you have rightly said, Zimbabweans, Mozambicans, Malawians, they stay amicably, with their South African neighbors in Soshanguve, in Guguletu, in Mamelodi, or in these townships, right? And there hasn't really been an issue where you hear of these things. But that being the case, obviously, there are people who are pushing an agenda. So yeah, the Twitter bots today will be on fire. It's going to inflame, already precarious relations on Twitter, so just on Twitter, obviously. And we hope that it doesn't spill over into people actually getting hurt. But I don't think that on a day-to-day level, in practical and real life, this has potential to destabilize any relations between the two countries.
If I may add there, I think there's always been a Sarajevo in South Africa when it comes to xenophobia. Oh, there are people, what you as you rightfully said, Maynard, the xenophobes, who are always waiting for a spark to start something, and most of them they have ulterior motives. It's not really about the foreigners, really. They just want to create havoc. And I think on this case alone, it's not going to be the black South Africans as we're used to. We might have AfriForum, and we might also have white Rhodesians, those who were booted out by Mugabe in 2000 and 2001. We might see them rising. I don't think a lot of them have healed. So whenever they hear Mugabe name, they want to draw their daggers out. So I think we have a lot of parties that will come to the table on the Chatunga issue. Those parties want a piece of him. What I think will work for him is if whatever he's working on, his lawyers or whatever we call them, fixers or whatever, if they're going to work on the issue, they need to do it ASAP. Because once these guys, especially the white guys, get to him, I think it is going to be a diplomatic chaos. Because xenophobia might be triggered by this, but I don't see it coming now because it's Chatunga. So I think it's a diplomatic issue that might spill into something else. Yeah.
But I just want to check something because I hadn't really kept an eye on our comments. There's a couple of complaints about feedback. I just want to make sure that that's sorted. I don't know if that is a case of OBS sending audio twice from the mic and from the headphones. So it's those in the comments. This last time that I've spoken, I mean, I've asked Boipelo to have a look. I'm hoping she can mention here if there is still feedback. So just give her a sec to respond. So just give me a sec. Apparently, you guys don't have issues, the guests, so that should
okay.
So that apparently seems to say that you guys are fine.
That's great.
So it appears the problem is with me. So just give me a sec while I check on that. And there's quite some interesting comments that I think will definitely. Okay. Thanks, Mkandla. Mkandla's confirmed that there's no more feedback, so that helps. Because so I think what I'm also going to try to do is.
So I would want to respond to. Just checking out the chats here. I'd like to respond to a comment by Bram. I don't know. I can't read the rest. It says Bram. HZ5CE. Apparently, is one of the is the best contributor to DAGAP. Thank you for that. And he says that if Zuma could go to jail, why would they spare this boy? If that happens, there'll be big trouble for us in South Africa, trust me. So first and foremost, we really need to clarify that point, okay? And what we've been saying needs to be taken into context. Zuma was sentenced to 15 months in prison. Did he serve 15 months? No, he was there for 2 months. Right? And the rest of his sentence was commuted on medical grounds.
So,
and
Prof, I was going to ask, why are you convinced that the South African government would want to protect Chatunga Mugabe, like, and possibly cause chaos with members of their own public, you know, their own taxpayers, their own citizens? What would be in it for South Africa in terms of why would they want to protect Chatunga? Why are you convinced so much that Pretoria would not want to see Chatunga in prison?
Okay, two things. First and foremost, politicians are inherently selfish and corrupt, and they look after their own interests.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing that people should know, right? Politicians are inherently selfish, and there are backroom conversations that we're not privy to at the moment, and that we might not be privy to, that are happening as we speak.
Between Pretoria and Harare.
Between Pretoria and Harare, right?
Of course.
And there are, promises and whatever that are moving, and things are exchanging hands, right? So that is the first one. The second one is that we do not know and the official legal position as of now.
Yeah.
We do not know. So we are assuming that this boy shot the guard and he's guilty. And if he's guilty, right, like I said before, money talks. You hear some funny explanation of how this is not exactly what it looks like to be. And if going by by what we know right now, the gun is missing. So how do you prosecute a case without the gun?
Yeah, that's a problem.
I mean, there's a comment there that points out that that warrant for Grace Mugabe is still active in South Africa. And I understand you've said, I think prior to when you came on, Prof said that warrant is definitely dubious. But it's still not been cancelled. And to be fair, since Grace Mugabe fled South Africa, or like Prof said earlier, since she was allowed to flee, she's not returned to South Africa.
Yeah.
And sources close to the Mugabe family today, when we reached out to them in the afternoon, they were unequivocally clear that reports that Grace Mugabe was trying to procure jet fuel to fly back were false. They said there's a challenge with her going back there. They didn't say it's a flat out no. There can always be negotiations. Ramaphosa did call Mnangagwa his brother just a couple of days ago when they met at the AU summit. To be fair, I would understand why Ramaphosa has many business interests in Zimbabwe. Part of them that Emerson Mnangagwa helps to sustain. So I understand that they see themselves as brothers. Grace Mugabe has a very good relationship with Mnangagwa. It's feisty, it's frosty, they fall out, they make up. But I believe when one of her parents was sick, Mnangagwa chartered a plane, at the cost of the government to get her to be flown back. He didn't allow her to fly back publicly. So by now a conversation would have been heard. I mean, I've got my own sources. I've reached out to them and they said we'll let you know by end of day how that's gone. So I don't doubt that the Mugabe family has very long hands, and that in the past they have tried to shoo cases away, one way or the other by doing X or Y or Z. What I'm just sort of struggling with is I'm struggling to understand where the appetite to protect Chatunga, especially institutional appetite, where it would come from. Unless if we're saying that maybe it's a case of maybe South Africa just not wanting to get their hands dirty. Giving a case, for instance, you guys in the Daga backend would know about it. There is a Zimbabwean musician who is based in Zimbabwe, but who is wanted out of Cape Town on armed robbery charges, armed robbery with a firearm. She's been wanted since around 2017, 2018, so pretty much same time as Grace Mugabe. She's returned to Zimbabwe and now lives her life as a celebrity. That case has been heavily reported the last couple of days by Johnny Saimaromo for IOL, for Independent. And following Johnny Saimaromo's reports, South Africa then sent the docket to the NPA. The NPA said they're now getting Interpol involved. So they claims that this girl will now be extradited, back to Zimbabwe. But the pinch of the story, and where I'm trying to take it, is in January 2025. That is the first time we actually looked at the story as dug up. And in that period, we reached out to Clayson Moniel, I think he's the director of public policy in South Africa and a very huge crime fighter. we reached out to Yusuf Abramji, who's also a crime fighter in South Africa, and we reached out to the NPA themselves in South Africa and the South African Police Service. The response then was delay your story in the interest of justice so that this person doesn't flee. And then nothing was ever done about it until now, when we're now hearing talks about Interpol. I think I tweeted earlier to Abramji to say it's incredible that now Interpol is involved, but for a year, you guys have been aware of this because we told you that this is what's happening. So I wonder if maybe perhaps, Prof, instead of an institutional appetite to protect the Mugabes, we could just be looking at a case where South African authorities are just unwilling or lazy to deal with it. I had pretty much almost a front row seat into the extradition case against Shepard Bushiri in Malawi, and that too had issues of South Africa sending documents in Afrikaans, for instance, at one point, or at another point sending documents quoting an extradition treaty that had never been ratified into Malawian law. So they were actually asking this person to be extradited on a law that didn't exist in Malawi. It was a treaty. You can imagine Zimbabwe's president can enter an agreement with the president of Tanzania, but that agreement needs to be ratified by an act of parliament for it to become law in Zimbabwe. That wasn't the case. There were all of these elementary mistakes until eventually the case, I think, as it stands, is almost thrown out. So I don't know if maybe we are being too harsh on the South African government by saying they have an appetite to protect the Mugabes, or it's just a case of where there's some institutional hesitancy, not wanting to get their hands dirty, and therefore along the way it's a case of just hang around until it dies. And I'm curious to know what both you, Hubert, and Prof think about that angle and what I think regards that.
Okay. As I have said before, the issue here is of time, both from the South African judicial system and from Chatunga's lawyers. Whoever grabs what is important in this issue will prevail. Because I think, personally, the problem here might be between the South African state and its own organ, the judicial. Because the courts here in South Africa, in as much as they can be corrupt and corrupted and at times incompetent, they're a little bit independent, So we have two issues here between Pretoria and Harare. The two brothers that you have mentioned might want to converse, they might want to find common ground. But also, the South African courts are a little bit different from the Zimbabwean ones, where we say the head of state has said this, now it is law. It's different here. So they might go against what Ramaphosa wants, or some other Mbalulas and all that of the ANC, who are in cordial relationships with the ZANU-PF people. I think that's where the problem might come from, because the South African courts also are afraid of the xenophobes that we were talking about, because it might be brewing because of this matter. It is already in the public domain, and people are expecting a lot, and they're just watching. It's going to be a long week. I think these first 2-3 days are more important. If nothing comes out that is definitive, we are going to have a very big problem, be it diplomatically or otherwise.
And Prof, what are your thoughts regarding that?
Pretty much still echo what Hubert had said. So I'm just getting confirmation that two people, it doesn't say who though, were charged with attempted murder by the South African Police Service.
Okay, so
yeah.
the reason why South African police won't name suspects are for legal reasons. So
it's unlawful.
People can only be named after their first appearance in court. And I know that sometimes leads to confusion because in the UK, suspects can be named after they've been charged. In the US, where you are, Prof, I believe suspects can be named at any point from the moment of arrest itself. In the UK, there are privacy laws. In South Africa, until a suspect appears in court, they can't be named, unless if the suspects themselves then confirm that there has been an arrest. I understand that in Zimbabwe it should be the case, but it's rarely followed, because I believe the first publication to actually name Chatunga for having been arrested was the Herald in Zimbabwe. But the reason why the police don't do that are for privacy reasons and for legal reasons. So if we have a confirmation of a charge, that then means he will appear in court. And thank you for that update, Prof, because the last update that I had was that it had been moved. They had been detained for questioning, and then that they were then arrested. So in light of that, then, Prof, if Chatunga and his mate, his friend, are being charged, how would you then see that playing out? Is it something you believe, at this moment? Like I said, I always go back to you were running logistics between whether there were two statements. The police said Grace was appearing at Weinberg Magistrates Court. Balula said she was appearing at Randburg, and you were trying to arrange between me and Tendai Chizema and who would go to which court. That never happened. Grace never appeared. And of course, I know in the past you've said you don't want to be a prophet, so you don't want me to continuously ask you to predict and speak like a prophet. But I just want to know what you think would then happen, because there was a lot of skepticism wasn't there earlier that there's no way Chatunga was going to get charged. If he's now being charged, then I would take it that this is serious business now.
Yeah. So can he appear in court? I think he will appear in court because I assume that they've been taken in and they're at a police station. Given the gravity of the charges, I do not think the police will release them so that they can come to court from home. So there's a very good chance that the police will have to escort them and detain them until they appear in court tomorrow, I think. Now, the interesting part, though, in all of this is that the police say that these guys were uncooperative and they actually had to knock to gain access to the house and into the yard. And the alleged weapon is still missing.
Yeah. So from the early update we did, Prof, before it come on, when police first responded, they were denied access. It actually required hostage negotiators, being asked to come in and to help assist with the situation. So there wasn't cooperation to begin with. There may have been cooperation later, but initially that wasn't the case, and it took some time for them to have been given access. But it's something I want to draw in, Prof, which is Shylock's retreat. It is brought back that issue of the BMW being seized with sirens. From the reporting by journalists who were on the ground, our correspondents had left by that time. It appears police found this car and seized it when they returned to the crime scene. In between them leaving and them returning, it appears the crime scene was then unsecured because you had people going in and out. And what harm can they do, or what harm can that do, Prof, to the integrity of an investigation if there are periods in between what is essentially a live crime scene where somebody's almost lost their life, a firearm has been discharged, and the police have left it unsecured, and by chance and by luck bumped into people trying to drive a car out of the premises. What harm do you think that does to the integrity of the case? But then also speaking to what I'd raised earlier about if there is some institutional laziness at play, especially with the authorities here, would you think that is a classic mistake, or just like I said, that lack of energy to deal with what is probably going to look like a muddy case?
Yeah, so there's something in forensics called Lockett's principle. So Lockett's principle pretty much just says that every contact leaves a trace, right? Yep. So whether you're doing digital forensics or you're doing forensics in general, this is the golden rule, right? Every contact leaves a trace. So in this case, anyone who enters a crime scene, whether it's a family member, a curious neighbor, or an overzealous police officer inevitably brings something, onto the crime scene, and they take something away, right? So what we now have here is a contamination of the crime scene, pretty much, right? Because once the police arrived, they should have secured the area, and you then protect and establish a chain of custody, right?
Yeah.
So this is very important because this is the evidence that is used in court. I remember, just to draw a parallel to this, someone was asking why a docket disappearing is a huge issue. Why can the police not just recharge the person when a docket disappears? It's pretty much the same with this one, right? You have that locus principle, you have the contamination, you have the protection of the chain of custody, and preserving fragile evidence. So let's assume a hypothetical scenario here that these guys are charged by, as they have been, by the South African Police Service. The defense is going to have a party with the state because of these,
Silly mistakes.
schoolboy errors, so to speak. Because now who was there before when the police came and they left, we do not know, because that crime scene was not secured. There was no preserving of fragile evidence, whether be it gunshot residue, where was there blood spatter patterns, and basically the legal integrity of the docket is now just in disarray. Whether this was calculated, we do not know. I would like to believe that the South African Police Service is competent people, and this is like fundamental issues that anyone who is into enforcement of on any level will know. You do not leave the crime scene, even if it takes 2 weeks to process that. The crime scene is off limit, but then you have a situation here where the police come and they leave, then they come back, and now they impound a BMW with white lights, at least from the videos that we have seen. That doesn't make sense. It's just being overzealous police officers in my view. Sorry.
And nobody knows if it was going out for the first time or it was going out for the second time. Nobody knows because no one
knows.
You know the funny part about. But if I may,
Yeah.
I wanted to take Maynard back to when he referred this case to Grace's, to what happened to with Grace's case in 2017. I think what we might find here is the difference between the two cases. Grace's case was okay. It could be dealt with, This one is a little bit messy. It is a little bit messy, though I think what Prof was saying here, the condemnation of the crime scene would really give an advantage to the defense. So what I think will happen is Chatunga is definitely going to go through the court processes. This is going to happen, especially because this has come now to light that he has been charged with his co-accused. I don't know his name, but because they've been charged now, the court process obviously is going to come.
Okay.
But
if I can interrupt you there, Prof hates playing prophet, so you're gonna have to play prophet. I want to give a hypothetical situation, because obviously when you have seen a pattern, you predict a pattern might happen. If Chatunga goes to court, he's given bail, and he skips bail and goes back to Zimbabwe. That is a very plausible thing to happen.
Yeah.
And his mother skipped the country and has never returned since. And like what Prof said, Pretoria has not even tried, not even once, to get Grace Mugabe there. She hasn't returned. but they've not tried. They've not tried to get it in that period. I
No.
was just looking up the stats. I mean, just last year alone, South Africa requested 7 criminals be returned from Zimbabwe back to South Africa, and Zimbabwe requested 14. So it's not like these two countries are not talking to each other regarding, can we have some of your criminals back? That's just not happened. Grace Mugabe, okay, she doesn't ordinarily live in Zimbabwe anymore. She lives somewhere in Asia. I think it's not important for us to state where for her own privacy reasons, but she lives in Asia now. She's been living there for quite a while. Um, South Africa has a chance of approaching that country to say, can you bring Grace Mugabe back? They've not done that. So when Prof says he is convinced beyond measure that they just don't want to bring Grace back, and that issue, to be fair, has all but been forgotten. I I, I kind of get where he's coming from, but similarly, like what I want to ask you, but was if Chatunga then leaves South Africa, then what? He's done it before, or his mother did it. There are also, I mean, questions about how he is in South Africa, because Chatunga is on bail for similar charges in Zimbabwe.
In Zimbabwe.
By the way,
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
And I don't know, Prof, from a legal perspective, if that is something South African prosecutors might raise. That, well, I know you're innocent until proven guilty, but he is facing charges in relation to 4 incidences relating to 3 individuals. And it's the same thing. I think one guy was tased in the neck, and a taser in Zimbabwe is classified as a firearm. So he is essentially, basically being seen to have, he's the same as somebody who discharged a gun. So he's basically on bail for the same offenses. He is now facing the same offenses in South Africa. I think it was the same argument that was made with South African singer. I think his name is Shebet or something like that. He was on bail.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Fit.
he was on bail for attempted murder, and then found himself facing charges of the same nature. And that was one of the arguments in court, that, well, you keep getting arrested for the same thing. So even though you're not convicted, you're a risk. So do you think, Hubert, that we could have a chance where he could leave and go back to Zim? And if he did, what would happen? And ultimately, do you think South African prosecutors tomorrow, or if he does bring a bail application, would bring up those issues in Zimbabwe to say he's already on bail for civil issues?
I'm not really sure if it is possible for them to cross-reference whatever is happening in Zimbabwe, or whatever happened to Zimbabwe, but it could be in their advantage to create a pattern for a violent man if they can prove that this guy is violent. But I'm certain that at one point when he was in South Africa with his brother, they committed something along those lines. I think they did, because I remember there was an incident that happened in Sandton that along those lines, that they had a fight or something. But I think if they can create a pattern, or they can create a man who is violent, it might work to their advantage. On the issue of skipping bail and going back to Zimbabwe, I don't know who would advise him to do that, because as issues stand right now, um, I think he has an advantage, especially considering what happened to the crime scene and all that. Mind you, the report says security had to call patrolling police to come. Nobody called the police when this happened.
Yeah.
So what happened then, and what happened between the shots and when the police came, is important. We don't even know what happened between, I don't know, minutes or hours before the police arrived, because the guy who was shot didn't call the police. The Chatungas didn't call the police. A security guard who had the shots had to call patrolling police to come and check. So we don't know how much the whole crime scene was contaminated. But I don't think the investigating officers will come with much, So if I could talk to him, I would really advise him to weather this out. Just try to fight it off. I don't know. But going to Zimbabwe might create a chaos. Again, this is Prof's department, but it's going to be a diplomatic chaos, because Chatunga is not Grace.
Yeah, 100%.
Chatunga is not great. It might be a very big problem because South Africa might need him for their own selfish reasons as well. South Africa is a ticking time bomb as we are speaking right now, in terms of xenophobia and all that. The people will be very angry, and as I've said earlier, it could be a Sarajevo to xenophobic attacks. So yeah, I think he doesn't really need to skip to and go to Zimbabwe.
Prof, your thoughts?
It's pretty much the same. So if he does skip bail conditions, he was granted bail in Zimbabwe for the assault of the farmers in Mazoe, but we are not privy to the bail conditions. I don't think he was asked to surrender his passport, which should be standard in bail applications and bail conditions, but seems like these high profile people wrote differently. So if he is to skip bail and go to Zimbabwe, obviously, like what Hubert was saying, Chatunga is not his mother nor his father. Does he have so the question now becomes, does Harare want to sour their relations with Pretoria over a non-entity in that sense, right? Because in the grand scheme of things, Chatunga does not have the same weight as his mother nor his father, right? So if he does skip bail, I do see Zimbabwe granting an extradition request from South Africa to take him back. Right?
Okay.
So
I want to take in a different path, Prof. Because you've mentioned something about Chatunga not being his mother and being a non-entity. I just want to pick your brains if he really is a non-entity, because that case that we keep talking about the miners and the farmers in Mazoe, the Mugabe family did have grievances we could prove true, which is people trespassed onto their farms and they dug up their citrus tree fruits, their orange trees, and left open pits mining in their farm. So they left it basically unusable, dug it up, which is ironic that they dug it up here and dug up. But eh, eh, when that case was happening, one of Chatunga's defense was that he wasn't just beating people; he was trying to get illegal miners off their property. And after he was arrested, Chatunga then went to the vice president, to General Chwenga, to go and plead to say, please help. These guys are saying we've been sent, or we're acting on behalf of the first lady, Auxilia Mnangagwa, the wife of the president. Now, Auxilia Mnangagwa has flat out denied and said she's absolutely got no link to illegal miners. She did not send anyone to dig up Grace's trees. But that is what the Mugabes believed, that those people who were trespassing and vandalizing their farm, killing the cows, and not just killing and stealing the meat. So they weren't cattle rustlers. They were just killing the cows and leaving them to rot. These people were acting on the instruction of the First Lady, Auxilia Mnangagwa. And it was the intervention of the Vice President, Constantino Chiwenga, that led to the hit going down on both Chatunga and his brother Robert. Robert was arrested just shortly after for being in possession of a little bit of weed. Which, unfortunately, any kind of weed is illegal to be in possession of, but I did a little bit of weed. And everybody felt like he police most of the time will give you at least a warning, or they'll take the weed away and tell you to get lost. But after that meeting between Chatunga and Chiwenga, we then saw Chiwenga's wife appearing at events with Grace Mugabe. Now, in the earlier video I did bring people into the context that the vice president in Zimbabwe is in a succession battle with his senior, with his principal. The president clearly wants to stay in power. The vice president's chances of becoming president are becoming slimmer by the day. And one of the problems that Chiwenga has had in ZANU-PF that you guys will be aware of is that after the war, where he had been a commissar at some point, Chiwenga joined the military and became a career military figure until he retired. Now, within
away
ZANU-PF,
from politics.
yeah, within ZANU-PF, within the trenches, within the cells, which is where you get the votes you need at Congress and so forth, he is largely unwanted. And unrecognized. Or rather, he was considered a weakling in that area. People like even Christopher Mchangwa fancied their chances against him.
Of course.
But ZANU-PF has had a consistent problem since the coup in 2017, which is that ZANU-PF supporters love the party, but they don't love their president. So in the 2018 election, Emerson Mnangagwa wins by 50.4% or something like that.
3.3, yeah.
Yeah, he narrowly wins. He almost loses that election.
Escape.
But ZANU-PF wins that election hands down with like almost 70%, almost a 2/3 majority. That situation repeats itself in 2023, not with as many drastic figures, but ZANU-PF consistently outperforms its president, leading to a conclusion that around 15 to 20% of ZANU-PF voters vote for the party, but not vote for Mnangagwa. And the explanation I've had from every analyst or every source within ZANU-PF I've spoken about is they say these are Mugabe's sleeper cells because the coup did destabilize it split the party in half. It's very hard to gauge how many people supported the coup, how many people didn't support the coup, because when Mnangagwa was fired, all of the 11 provinces voted to boot him out, right? So they actually did support him, but again, put it out. They changed that vote when there were people on the streets with tanks and guns. So they essentially changed their opinions at gunpoint. So there are sleeper cells within the Mugabe family. And the strategy then, in one of the videos we did, and when I'd done a bit of investigation, was there was a very deliberate attempt to get Chwenga to appeal to Mugabe's sleeper cells. I mean, if anything, if you were to go back and watch his transformation in the last 6 months, there's been a couple of speeches where he actually spots Mugabe goatee, and he speaks like a statesman. His English is changed, you can almost you can see him becoming a little bit of Bob each and every day.
Yeah.
So if Chatunga was the catalyst of fixing things between Chwenga and the Mugabes and giving Chwenga access to Mugabe's sleeper cells, would we still say he's a non-entity given that he has the one commodity that ED has never been able to get, which is Mugabe's sleeper cells, and the one commodity that Constantino Chwenga desperately needs, which is Mugabe's sleeper cells? He might not be his mother, but he definitely, can we say he's a non-entity? I mean, ZANU-PF tried to get him to so many rallies, if you remember, and he refused to go there. Bona Mugabe went, Robert Mugabe Jr. went, Chatunga has never been there and he refused to go there. So,
and that's the problem with Chatunga, Maynard. It's not like he's a non-entity. He tries so hard to be nothing. He tries so hard. Even when people try to help him, bring him close and everything, he tries so hard to be nothing. That's where the problem is. So when you try that many times, a lot of people will not want to be around you. They won't want you to be around them. As I'm speaking to you, I think even if he goes to the vice president now, you won't want anything to do with him, because you remember when this whole thing was starting, he would go to the president himself, and the president will cover for him and all that. But I don't think he wants to see him anymore. He's a very big problem, that young man. That's where the problem is. I don't think Prof was saying he's a non-entity as in him, but I think he tries so much to be nothing, and nobody wants anything to do with him.
Prof,
you see,
come in. Do you think he's a non-entity?
Yes, in the grand scheme of things, he is. I don't think he has any political sway, regardless of what we might want to think about his ties to the vice president of Zimbabwe. He just doesn't have the political muscle to cause sleepless nights, so to speak, either in Pretoria or in Harare.
Of course.
So when it comes down to it, he can be sacrificed. Like I said, politicians are inherently selfish. The first thing that they do is look after their own interests. So as long as they think that they can get away with it and it serves their interests, then they can sacrifice him.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I don't know if you have anything else to add, or Prof, you have anything else to add before we allow our viewers to have a good night, given that we are likely going to be chasing around different courts trying to figure out where it's going to appear tomorrow. If it does appear, do you guys have anything to add?
No, I, uh, I think what I've seen from his behavior comes from mostly from his mother. I think
Oh,
he takes after. I think
okay.
he takes after him in everything. Okay, I don't mean it in a bad way, but yeah, I think it's an inherited thing. It's an inborn malady, really. Something that I wish he could grow out of. But well, here we are.
I'll take that to Prof. Prof, what do you think is the reason behind the significant behavioral problems with both of Mugabe's boys? I mean, for viewers who've just tuned in, we did go through the extensive rep sheet from them being expelled in Dubai for criminal reasons. That needed Mugabe to intervene. Then that would have been 2016, wasn't it? 2016, 2017.
Yeah.
Chatunga being in and out of court in Zimbabwe, Robert Mugabe Jr. facing different charges. I think at the moment, Robert Jr. is in drug rehabilitation. So, Prof, how have how have we gotten here for a man who didn't drink, a man who didn't smoke, and a man who ate healthy African food, a man who, by all accounts, everybody says he was the epitome of a true,
Discipline.
a great African man, very disciplined, up at 5. He was jogging when he was in his 90s. How have we gotten his children, specifically the boys, to be polar opposites of essentially everything that Mugabe stood for? I think we've lost Prof, haven't we? Oh no, we've not lost Prof. I think what's happened is we've lost the Google Meet itself. But on that, viewers, thank you very much for joining in. We apologize for the audio problems at the start, the feedback. I think it's been one of those days. The video in the afternoon, we couldn't get this background to show. I looked like I was streaming from heaven. And then this one, we hear there were feedback problems at the start of the video. A lot of that is got to do with us migrating to this live setup, which is a solution of all of us having to do other things in life. So as you know, Dug Up is a collaboration of several different journalists and professionals across different places in the world. We get to do different things in the day job. I work in the Premier League, in the EFL. I do a lot of sports photography. I'm a journalist by profession. Hubert Stolle was here as a journalist by profession as well. Prof. Changami, it's like different people. Um, and it's been very difficult to produce videos every week like we used to work on the investigations, largely because we have to do this in our spare time. But this solution of being able to stream live, which was brought up today, is a meaningful way for us when we have an hour to not have to go through the strenuous activity of producing an actual video. But once again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We completely appreciate that. And we will see you tomorrow when we send somebody to court, if they do appear in court. So until then, thank you so much for following Dug Up. We appreciate you.